Hello, and welcome to Let My People Eat, a podcast that provides satisfying talk about kosher nutrition. Here we clear through the clutter of nutrition speak, arm you with the clarity and confidence to eat, feel, and be your healthiest every day. I am Jill Scharfman, a board-certified holistic nutritionist living in Los Angeles, and with me is Dr. Andrea Moskowitz.
Hi, I'm Dr. Andrea Moskowitz, and I'm a neuroscientist and psychiatrist. I use my training and experience to integrate positive lifestyle changes into my patients' lives.
Hey, Andrea.
Hey, Jill. How's it going?
It's going well, but you know what's coming up?
Oh, it's the P word?
It is the P word. Pesach, Passover. I
pass out.
Yes. I know I'm not alone in this holiday that's looming in front of us. I want to play you a voicemail that came in from Emma, and you'll get an idea about the level of stress and tension that's out there from this holiday.
Hey, Jill and Andrea. How are you? It's Emma here. I have to say first off that I love listening to your podcast. It's been really helpful. I have a question. With Pesach coming, I am so stressed. There's so much prep in the kitchen. I have my relatives coming. There's just so much to do, and I don't even know where to start. And I figured that you guys are the perfect people to reach out to help me get through this. Please, tell me how.
So, Emma, I don't know if we're the perfect people, but we do have somebody in studio today who is the author of Pesach Perfectly Organized. So we can all hear the level of stress in your voice.
Oh, yeah.
And just know that you are not alone. So what we want to do is offer some advice to help you, not have a nervous breakdown because Pesach's coming. So our guest today is Rivka Slatkin. She's the founder of JewishLifeOrganized.com. She balances her life between raising her 5 children and in her position as chief marketing officer of her husband's marriage therapy practice, the MarriageRestorationProject.com. Rivka is passionate about living intentionally and creating a safe and organized physical and mental space on a daily basis. She's the author of the Jewish Holidays Perfectly Organized series and is currently tackling Pesach herself. Hey, Rivka.
Hi, Rivka.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here. I mean, you heard Emma and her voicemail, and she really needs some help and some guidance. So,
Sure.
Anything that you can give to any of us, we're happy to hear it. How did you start, thinking about this and putting together your ebook and trying to help other women with this being organized?
So I actually had a professional organizing business way back in 2001 when I was in college, and I happened to tune on Oprah. And I saw her getting her closets decluttered by a professional organizer named Julie Morgenstern. And I was like, that's a real job. I can't believe it because I've always loved decluttering and organizing and helping, even just as a teenager, helping my friends clean their rooms. So I graduated college with a degree in health administration, and I didn't actually utilize it right in the beginning because I created an organizing business. So all was well, and it was great. The decluttering jobs were amazing. But I found when it came to Pesach, I was like weak at the knees, like the caller, Emma, who left the voicemail. It just felt like beyond my reach. And I thought, hello, I'm a professional organizer. Why is this one holiday making me go, feel completely gutted when it comes to being capable and able to use my techniques? So I went on a mission to really tackle Pesach and figure out why is it so hard and what does it take to be successful. And so what I did was I interviewed many homemakers that were, in my mind, really successful because either they had large families or they've been homemakers for a long time. And I saw really personally in their own homes that they were really able to make Pesach with very little stress. So I interviewed each one of them and I compiled my findings And that is what gave birth to Pesach Perfectly Organized.
Got it. Yeah, that seems so smart that you would actually go and talk to people and interview it. It's almost like your background in your health administration that you were studying, that you wanted to do research. Mm-hmm. And how do I approach Pesach in a, almost a clinical way?
In a logical way.
So
it's funny. I haven't thought of it that way.
So I love that. I love that that was your approach. And it was so smart. I mean, a lot of people, I know I learned from my mother. She made Pesach for years. Of course, now she and my father come to us for Pesach and to my other siblings, but she was very organized and she used a lot of the tips just naturally that you suggest, and we'll talk about those and get into it. But she was my teacher in how to be organized. And, I found that really helpful. Before we get into the nitty gritty of some of the suggestions that you have, do you think, though, it's a personality issue? You write in the introduction to Pesach Perfectly Organized that the secret of successful Jewish homemakers is to keep the holidays in mind throughout the year. These women shop for Purim costumes at the end of October, Purim candy after Hanukkah, and Sukkah decorations when they see a sale at a home goods store. Now, that's how I operate, and that's how my sister operates. But I think a lot of people will hear that and go, that's ridiculous. Like, I can't think about Purim in, after Hanukkah. That's way too early, or, that they don't think that way. Do you think it's a personality, or that anybody can adopt some of these tips and it would help them?
I think it's both. I think it's anybody that's committed to do anything and change anything can be successful. So if someone is committed and they want to do it that way, they can definitely learn the techniques and make it a habit. At the same time, I talk about this in a guide I wrote for Shabbos Perfectly Organized. There are people who really enjoy spontaneity and they like being spontaneous and they feel kind of chained to just having to do things a certain way. So they want to be more spontaneous, and that's fine too. So there's plenty of wiggle room if somebody doesn't want to do it that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, but do you ever come across, I guess, when you're working with other women, that it's really hard for them to make lists and to be so organized?
Sure, it's definitely, and myself included, I have a bit more of a creative brain. So sometimes it really is a struggle for me to sit down and make lists. And what I wanted to share also with Emma, I believe is her name, who left the voicemail, is the hardest part is just, I find with Pesach especially, the hardest part is just getting started. I would say we just dread it and we stress about it and we think about it and it's this huge elephant, and just the idea of starting feels absolutely insurmountable. And I would say, like, all of you probably know that once you just started, it was so much easier.
Yeah, right. Or you just go down the rabbit hole and you don't come out until it's done.
It just happens.
Yeah.
That's what I like, in your program, like you break it down week by week. So it makes it just much more manageable, because I think sometimes people just look at Pesach, it's like Mount Everest. How am I going to get up there? And they just see it as this one big vast thing that they're going to get stuck in and not be able to do, instead of going, okay, let me take it one part at a time.
Right. Yes.
And they catastrophize it, basically.
I always say it's only an 8-day holiday.
8-week holiday. Oh, it feels like
it feels like it's an 8-week holiday sometimes.
Yeah.
But it does. And Jill, and about your question about the list, I can even remember many times, and this will still happen while I'll be in a kosher grocery, and I'll see a woman walking around with a notebook, and it looks super organized with lists galore, and I find myself wanting to choke because I'm like, oh, she's already started and she's up to this. And I find we as women oftentimes will compare ourselves to others, and that just adds to the overwhelm and our mental state about Pesach also.
That's true. Now, I'm the person who is with the notebook shopping very early. And for me, the panic comes, maybe I'll go in a few days before to get some dairy or something that I need. And it's only like a couple of items. And I see these women who have 2 shopping carts filled with food. And that freaks me out. I'm like, why are you just doing your shopping now? I'm like, oh no, and I know that women get to the Seder and they are exhausted.
Right.
They're exhausted. They're almost angry a little bit because here they've worked so hard to prepare this beautiful meal. They have guests, usually kids are home, and they can't really enjoy it because they're just toasted by that. They just are really, okay. So maybe we should get into some of the things that you recommend. So the first thing is make a list, right?
Well, sure. It depends on what week we're at. So we have about 6 weeks now?
Now we do. But this episode is going to air about 2 weeks before, 2.5 weeks before. So, but we will remind people next year to listen to it earlier. But, and of course they can always go look at your ebook, Pesach Perfectly Organized, so that they can, be more prepared in the future.
And I wonder, this might not be fair, but is there a way you can kind of, if you haven't been following the 6-week program, is there a way you can sort of do or talk about maybe a 3-week program?
A jumpstart.
No, a 3-week program, so that people, when they listen to it, don't feel oh my gosh, I lost 3 weeks, I'm done.
Right.
Yeah. It really, you can definitely do it in the 2 weeks. I think 1 year I maybe made Pesach in a week. So it can definitely be done. It's just a question of, what kind of space a person has in their home, how much they want to do in advance. So, let's see, 2 weeks before. So I always say the last week, you're just going to have your vacuum out the whole entire week. So just think that you're going to have your vacuum out. You're not even going to put it away. So I kind of reserve that last week for just vacuuming.
See, and I would find that would really, in my house, that last week, there's 1 day to turn over, 3 days cooking. I'm not, there's no chametz around, except, we live in LA. So we always eat outside a lot, those last few days because the kitchen is done already. But I feel like that point, almost by that last week, everything should be cleaned and vacuumed.
But I think if you have a lot of smaller kids, it depends on the age of your children too.
Exactly.
I think this is very much, things change.
Right.
As you get older, your kids get older, hopefully, et cetera. It hopefully it changes, right?
Right.
Hopefully your 17-year-old is not still,
Right. But even then, I would buy, I would get my car cleaned, a week before. And then any snacks that come in are kosher for Pesach snacks or fruits things that, if they did get in the car, it doesn't matter. The car is kosher for Pesach. The food that they're bringing in is kosher for Pesach.
Right. Yeah. Again, it does. Like Andrea said, it definitely depends on the age of the kids. And in the program, I realized people have, they could have a lot of young kids, and it can be very challenging.
Right.
And related to nutrition and things like that, what I love about Pesach is it's such a good time to really revamp one's eating habits, as I'm sure you've talked about and with your clients. I fill up, with so much produce and not prepackaged foods. So it's really a good time to think about that too, which I'm sure you'll appreciate. So it really depends on the age of the kids, because if you got a baby who's sleeping with, and is crumbly in her crib, you're still going to need that vacuum out. But I always advise after Purim to almost start stocking up on a lot of, I know gluten-free is controversial here, but really for Pesach's sake, if we can start buying only, gluten-free items for our kids' snacks for lunches, even 3-4 weeks before, then there wouldn't have been crumbs for very long at all. So like Jill said, there wouldn't be any at that 2-week mark. So it kind of has to do with the listener's comfort level of how, how much.
Okay.
At the 2-week mark, I would say, for sure cleaning the cars, making sure the fridge and the freezer are cleaned out so you can go to the store and you can bring in the Pesach items.
Right.
Freeze them for
sure.
So
this is almost like you're going to create this timeline with a schedule. So if we know this year the first Seder is on Friday night, April 19th, you're going to want to work backwards, right?
Right.
And start to see when is my cutoff date for chametz? When am I getting the car cleaned? When is there no food allowed upstairs or in the bedrooms, or, kind of start planning that out and making your lists and getting those things done.
Right. And looking over the menus and the common ingredients so you can sort of create those menus while you're shopping. It's a lot of killing two birds with one stone.
Okay.
You know, like
explain.
So while I'm grocery shopping, I'm also planning my menu. So you accomplished, two things at once. Or while I'm, what was the other one? While I'm getting rid of my chametz, I'm also going to schedule with the rabbi when I can come over and sell my chametz. So really thinking about how can I kill two birds with one stone.
Right. Okay.
Cleaning the kids' closets, but then also organizing their wardrobe, what they're going to wear on Pesach, and do I need spring clothing? Doing those things at the same time.
Right. That's really smart.
Right.
Why don't we talk a minute about the difference between cleaning for Pesach and spring cleaning? Because I think people do get those things a little confused. When we're cleaning for Pesach, it doesn't mean your whole house gets your complete, you don't have to do all Marie Kondo on your house at that point.
Not at all. And like me being a perfectionist and enjoying that. So I like doing that. But a person can make Pesach in, one day where they're just looking for the actual food items that are barley, rye, oat, wheat, or spelt around the house, getting rid of those, and then getting the dishes ready. You don't need to declutter. You don't need to organize. You don't need to wash your curtains.
Right.
Those are really not necessary at all.
You don't need to take out every book and shake it open.
Right.
No, not at all. No.
Yeah. Although people do that, and no judgment.
No judgment.
They do.
But I think what we're talking about too is, I think you were saying how as women, sometimes we tend to compare ourselves to other women and feel like we're falling short, or, I should be doing more because that person's doing more.
Right.
So I think that sometimes happens with getting ready for Pesach and prepping for Pesach. People talk about it and it's like, oh my gosh, oh, you did that? Oh, and then they go home and they're like, oh no, I haven't done that. I should do that because so-and-so does it. Or
right.
And I think that's how things in some ways get out of hand.
I think,
for sure.
I think you also bring up a good point that people think everything has to look like Pinterest.
Right.
When they set their tables and, the kids and the headbands and the socks and everything has to be perfect.
Right.
And I think we have to kind of let that go.
Right.
And if we, I actually, we use dishes on Pesach, but I buy a ton of paper plates.
Yeah.
And, if we need to use paper goods and they go in the trash, that's what we're going to do just to help so we don't always have a million dishes to wash. So I think we have to cut ourselves a break.
Yeah.
And I think you're right that it's good to not come to the Seder table like a washed, dish rag, and to really reassess your priorities and your goals and keep them in mind. Do you want to have a happy, connected meal with your family? If you do, then you're going to have to lighten up on some of the perfectionism that maybe one has, like to have that perfect table, because it's just not going to be perfect.
Right.
It never is.
It never is, right.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just share, I did this years and years ago, but I decided, because I work full time, and I decided, you know what, by the time we get to the Seder, by the time we get to the meal, and honestly, no one's really that hungry anymore. So it's like a one plate meal.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't have soup. I do the hard boiled eggs.
Right.
Because of the custom, but I don't do gefilte. I don't do fish. I don't do a soup course. I do a protein and a vegetable.
Right.
And or one or two vegetables
and maybe
some quinoa on the side or some potatoes. And that's it. We're done. Finished.
Mm-hmm.
One plate out.
Right.
In my house. And just because nobody really, honestly, nobody really wanted to eat any of it.
Right. Because it's late.
It's late.
Very late.
Right. And they've already eaten, more, and they've already eaten
matzah,
a lot of matzah and everything else, and a lot of grape juice.
Yeah.
And do they really need all of those elaborate desserts? I always see those recipes for desserts, and I'm tempted, and I'm thinking, I should have these for the kids. And I'm thinking, do they really need that? Can they just pick up a fruit or vegetable?
Right. Or it's nice, you can to put out fruits or dried fruits or nuts, and you do one flourless chocolate cake. Just keep it simple.
Right. I do like 2 pans. Well, I don't have that many people at home right now, but I do a couple of pans of brownies.
Right.
And I can freeze them, and people like them, and I don't make those brownies at any other time.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah. Also, I think it's also important to involve the family.
Right.
Everybody should be participating. The mother shouldn't be a martyr. The husband needs to be involved. The kids need to be involved. Right. And, most kids like it. They like either being in the kitchen or helping organize. And I think that's also very important. So it's a group effort, and it all does not fall on the mom's shoulders. Sure. Okay. Let's see. What else can we talk about?
Let me ask you something, because I think this is, so that last week of Pesach, any tips for this? So, you're kind of in the kitchen more, you're doing more, you're cooking more, getting last minute cleaning done. So but the rest of the family and yourself too still need to eat. So any food suggestions, or, how do you handle that?
Yeah.
What's funny is I can't remember whose blog I read this on years ago, but there was a mom that said that week is actually the week she takes her family on vacation because everything is done and she's already cooked and everything's done. And she just found that because of this constant need to eat, but then it doesn't fit in with what's in the kitchen. Right. She actually ended up taking that week to go on vacation. And that's not necessarily feasible, of course, for all of us. I think it depends on when somebody wants to turn over. So if somebody really wants to, a lot of these women like to turn over a full week before. So they are cooking on, Passover dishes the entire week. I don't really like that, but it's finding that magic. It's like doing a dance and finding when that day is it's going to work for your family.
Right. And I find that I need a good 3 days, so I can do kind of all my meats one day, and then dairy and baking, and then the third day is their pace, where you're getting the Seder plates ready and setting the table and all that. So. And this year we have a lot of Chol Hamoed, so that's really nice too, because sometimes you have to prep for a 3-day Yontif, and that's really a lot of food that has to be, ready to go, and shopping, and, you can't run out and get something if you need it. So, you're right.
Yeah,
people have to, they have to find that sweet, and 3 days meaning everything's done the day before those 3 days start. You're not covering countertops. Yeah.
For sure. That last day, the Erev, I do not do anything besides prepare Seder plate items. There's the cooking's done, the table's set up. I do not want to do anything that last day. I feel like that is a lofty goal, but one that's really worth it. Because you can go and get a manicure, and it's oh, hello, there's a world outside of this kitchen.
Or take a nap so you can stay up. I also find that that's the day that we play. Let's try and make the crackers, the Pesach crackers, that maybe, something that we didn't absolutely need, but, if we had time, we could play around with those kind of things. Let's do this, so we always have a couple of those things in our back pocket that we're hey, let's try this, or try a new recipe or something. And it's not stressful because we do have the time.
Yeah, I think that's fabulous. Yeah. And Andrea's question about the types of foods, I do like having one day to do all the meats, one day to do all the baking, and then the Seder plate items. So cooking snacks and things within those parameters. Right.
And here's a hack too. There are a lot of takeout places that prepare the Seder plate for you. I have done that. And I have to say, when they have grated all the maror for you, and they can give you all the charoset and all the roasted egg, everything is just, you can buy extra of what you need. But I have found that to be a lifesaver. So if anybody doesn't enjoy that part, or they're running out of time, know that there probably is a takeout place, a Pesach takeout place in your community that you can just go, or send your husband to pick up all those items, and you could just cross that off your list.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
See, the the one way
depending on people's custom.
Right. The way I handle it is actually, like I said, well, have you heard from my dinner menu, right?
Yeah.
I just make everything much less fancy. Like, I just feel like, you know what? I am not trying to recreate a Pesach program.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can't because I'm working the week.
Right.
My problem is like this year, it falls Friday night. I work Monday through Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not taking time. I'm off that time. So it's like I'm actually going to probably turn my kitchen over Friday, which I know sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, but that gives me agita.
No. And I'll be prepared for that. And and then I'll start cooking Friday. Start cooking Sunday. Just because, and I think people have these work schedules.
You're saying the Friday before?
Yeah, the Friday before.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant Erev Pesach.
Oh no, I'm not that crazy.
Okay, don't do that.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then, for certain.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, no. And then for certain things, so for like harosis, it's like, I'll buy the horseradish
the mar.
The mar.
Yeah.
Or, for harosis, right, the mar, right. And for other things, I just try and simplify it because honestly, I don't know, maybe my family is just very undemanding, but they don't really notice that much. They'd rather have me, I think, less stressed.
Right, for sure.
Than have a fancy dish in front of them.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, Rivka, on our meal prep episode. Cook in bulk. You can cook one chicken, you could cook 2 chickens, you could cook 3 chickens. You can do a lot of chicken breast fillets and just have them done, put them in the freezer, and pull them out when you need them. So we just want to remind everybody that that's always a good tip. Like, you don't have to do it meal by meal.
So, Andrea, there's a tip that might help you, especially with your work schedule, which is literally just taking, let's say, a bunch of kosher for Passover chicken, setting up a folding table in your laundry room, a kosher for Pesach knife, a kosher for Pesach cutting board, and one could actually use their crock pot to start cooking meals. And every time, let's say the crock pot's finished cooking, you put in the next dish and the next dish. So you can cook even overnight for Pesach and then freeze those items. And then you'll be done with a lot of the main dishes.
Yeah, it's like a mini Pesach kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more tips like that?
That one she liked. She liked that one. I think you also had a tip for people who were making Pesach for the very first time. So I know, like I said, there was that transition where we always went to my parents for Pesach, and then that year that things kind of flipped over and they started coming to us and to my sister for Pesach. That the first year that you're making Pesach, you don't have to go and buy out Home Goods or Target, or you don't need to buy an entire kitchen that first time. Do you want to elaborate on that?
It's funny you're saying that because I seem to remember doing the opposite when it's the first year. I find that is the hardest year because people don't have the appliances and things that they need. So that is the year that I really kind of have gone into a Bed Bath & Beyond and bought like a whole set, really duplicated the kitchen.
Right.
I guess it's a preference, but yeah, that first year is tough because you need an entire set of everything. I think it would be good to arm yourself with a good kitchen utensil list so you're not going overboard. Do you really need an immersion blender for Pesach?
Yes, you do.
You do.
In Jill's home.
I mean, really like with Andrea's, keeping it simple with the meals. This isn't a time to invent maybe a lot of new recipes unless you really want to. Right. So sticking with your typical recipes that work, going in with sort of a bare bones kitchen utensil list. Yeah, you are going to need to create basically a whole nother kitchen inventory that first year. But the good news is once you have it, you'll have it forever. And you'll create a center in your house where it's always going to, rest when Pesach is over. And you can arm yourself for success with really writing lists about what is in that, kitchen inventory area.
Right. Yeah. See, I know, I've been making Pesach probably for about 20 years. I mean, we did go away a few years here and there, which was quite amazing. I was like, now I totally get it, why people do that. But like, I always find every year, there's always something that I do want to add. Maybe in the beginning it was like, we added wine glasses, and then we added, cake plates, cake stands, or pitchers for the table. Like there was always something that when it was over, I was like, I wish I could have had that item. And then I usually go and buy it, and I'll store it for the following year. So it's always good while you're, once you've set up your initial kitchen, as you're going through Pesach, what are the things, serving platters. I didn't have serving platters, the first couple of years. But as I was entertaining more and more, I felt like, oh, that would be a really good investment. And, you don't have to buy expensive things. No. I go to somewhere here called Bargain Chef, which is a restaurant supply store. And they have all those very cool trays and platters and bowls and everything. And they're not expensive. And if they break, it's okay. And, just put those away and store them. But, so it's a good idea as you're going through Pesach to keep in mind anything that you think you're missing, that you're really missing, that you want to purchase when Pesach's over for next year. So,
yeah, that is a good idea. The other thing too, I mean, we've never gone away for Pesach since we've been married. So I've done Pesach for over 20 years, and we never had to go to anybody's house. Well, this is kind of a sneaky trick, but people might laugh at this. So the first year we were married, we didn't have kids. So what I did was, you're going to laugh. I made sure that, because the thing that really overwhelmed me was the idea of the Seders. Mm-hmm. So I made sure that for both Seders, we got invited out.
Yeah. That is great.
And then I did, I did lunches, and I did, the last days we got invited out for dinner then too, but I did, some of those meals and stuff. And I felt like in some ways it actually has made it much easier for me over the years, because I kind of gradually took on more of the responsibilities instead of having spent, if you can, it's great, but having spent the first couple of years going out all the time, and then all of a sudden having to make my first Pesach, having people over, having kids, having like everything all together.
Right. You eased your way into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can see what works really nicely from other people's homes.
Right.
And what what customs maybe you want to adopt. So that's really a nice sort of easing your way into it for sure.
And I actually recently did admit this to my two friends who I snagged the invitations from.
Did they say they knew the whole time?
No, but I remember the second Seder I was having some difficulty, and I was on the phone with somebody, and my husband was standing there, and then they said, oh, would you like to come to our house for Pesach? And I was like, for the Seder? I was like, oh, that would be great. Thank you so much. And da-da-da-da. And I gave my husband a big thumbs up.
Right, that you got it.
That's great.
The other thing I want to say is, if you can afford it, even to have extra cleaning help for one day can make a tremendous difference.
Right.
Because the house and the kitchen, everything, the laundry, things are piling up and getting dirty, and the kids are usually home from school. And if you can afford, even for a few hours, it really would take a lot of pressure off in terms of just your peace of mind and your sanity. So something to keep in mind.
Right.
Yeah. And one other tip I have, just because you asked for another big tip.
Yeah.
When Pesach is over, resist the urge to just rip all the counter covers off and throwing the paper goods away, because it's a really good opportunity to set a station up where you can assess what worked this year, what was missing, and make a list, and even tape it onto the, let's say to the Rubbermaid containers that you go and you put back in the basement. But even if you have a list on top of the containers that says what's in the box or what spices you have that you're going to be using from year to year, take the opportunity to end Pesach well, so you're armed for success the following year as well.
Yeah, that sounds great. And make sure everything is washed and clean when you put it away. Empty your salt and pepper shakers, kind of wipe down your drain boards and any appliances that you've used, because you are going to store them and they're going to be put away for a year. So you want to make sure when you take things out, they're in really good condition still. Okay, so yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask you. So, what are some of the most useful things that you found, like for Pesach, like for the kitchen, or
like utensils,
appliances, utensils, storage things? I don't know. Just
okay,
sure. Well, having a really good peeler is important. I've had a few junky peelers that just did not work. And then it was like a pain because I had to go to the store just for a peeler. Now we have Amazon, you know, but, so having a good peeler, having a good knife, paper goods. Yeah, that's the time I really will splurge on a lot of paper goods.
Right. Me too.
I would also say we have Smart and Final here.
Right.
I stock up on the deli containers, the plastic containers that you would, like when you go to a deli, you would get soup or coleslaw or potato salad in. I buy those, you know, in these sleeves of 50 with lids so that, like you said, if you're using the crock pot and you make your soup, you can then put your soup in those deli containers and put them in the freezer. Also, the big foils, you know, they all come with lids. There are a million different sizes, loaf pans, round pans, lasagna-sized pans, you know, and just use those. You can write on with a Sharpie on the cover and then put those in the freezer. Right. So that's, I love having those type of things. So I'm not always washing pans also.
Exactly.
And, you know, just I can keep the factory going. Because I have all these pans,
right? And then put it away nicely, and
right.
I like your idea of going to a restaurant supply store. I think that's really great because then you have really a lot of items.
Right? They know what they're doing. You know, this
absolutely.
is how they work and they operate. Okay, so let's review. Number one, lists, and lists. Just keep everything together. You could do it on your computer. You can, if you're more of a paper person, you can keep them in binders. You know, have your shopping list. Keep your menus from year to year.
Right.
You know, I always do put my chametz sale form in that binder too, so that to me is kind of a visual reminder that I need to sell my chametz.
That's a good idea.
You know, just so anything you know, it just grows over time. So keep a list of everything and keep it very streamlined. Also, you want to create a schedule and go backwards. So when is the first night of Pesach? Okay, that day, you know, you want to concentrate on the Seder. The day before is baking. The day before is your meat. The day before you're turning over your kitchen. The day before you're getting your car clean. Whatever it is, you're bringing your totes up from the basement, you know, all your containers from the basement. Also, make sure everything is manageable. So you don't want to just write plan menus. You want to lay out all your meals that you're going to be preparing for so that you can actually see what you have to do. Don't go overboard with your cleaning unless that is, I know there are some people who that's how they do it and that's fine. But, you know, you're cleaning for Pesach and you're trying to get rid of chametz.
Right.
Like you said, Rivka, you don't have to clean your curtains.
Right.
For Pesach.
Right. Or your top fixtures, or, you know.
Yeah, exactly. There is a difference. Get your husband, get your kids involved. Make this a team effort so that you don't feel that all the pressure is on you.
Right. And one thing I would add to that, too, because I've talked to some friends of mine who have, you know, their kids are grown up and they're married and they come home for Pesach. And I keep like pushing them, and now finally some of them are doing it. I was like, you know, when they come in, because they come in a couple of days beforehand, you know what? Your grown kids should be helping you prep for Pesach.
Right. Yes.
You know, they're not just coming for like a vacation. Like, I'm not saying they should spend the whole time in the kitchen themselves, but they should be helping.
Right. And to the point that it's also good, you have to train them because, like I said, at some point that's going to change and they're going to be having you for Pesach. So you might as well teach them while they're there with you what to do.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. The only caveat I would say on that, and I would put my marriage therapy hat on that for a moment, is really to be also wary of the word should. So yes, people should be helping, but that can set us up for real big disappointments and conflict. So if you feel like the married kids should be helping or the kids should be getting involved, use that as a clue every time you think of the word should, that, okay, I need to have an opportunity to have some clearly laid out communication as to what I need here. Right. So this does not result in fighting or disappointment. So really use the opportunity to establish clear, calm communication and expectations.
Right. Do you think it would be a good idea to, like, you know, I mean, that should, but just even give people assignments, but say, listen, I need some help with this. I really appreciate it if you would
do XYZ.
Do XYZ.
Yeah, I think setting a time in advance where you say, hey, I want to talk to you about something. When's a good time for me to go over with you a few things that I need from you, help, to help
get ready for Pesach. Yeah.
Right.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the final point is, like Andrea's, simplify.
Right.
Do simple meals that you set your table. It should be pretty, but don't get stressed out about, I'm going to make 3 different kugels and 4 different cakes, and it's really not necessary. You might think it is, but it's not. So
yeah, I think protecting our energy and keeping the goal in mind is really important with Pesach.
Right. And then the final thing, Rivka, like you said, when it's done, kind of reassess, put everything away, regroup, kind of, update your lists, and make any notes that you need, because you will be very relieved when when the following year comes and you are just ready to hit the ground running, and you're not starting from step 1 again. So
perfect.
Yes.
You got it.
All right. Great.
And how to make Pesach.
Yes. Yeah. This is how to make Pesach. But even with all this and all the preparation and organization that I have, I am still so stressed out about it. Yeah. It's like the minute, for me, it's like the minute Hanukkah is over, I start thinking about Pesach. So
it's that anxiety of, having to switch gears. And it's, again, like, I feel like the hardest part is just getting started.
Right. Yes, that's true. Getting that out. Okay, great. So
thank you.
Rivka, thank you so much. Rivka, you can find her at JewishLifeOrganized.com, where you can look at her Jewish Holidays Perfectly Organized series. She does have menus there for Pesach. So if you want to use those as a cheat sheet, they're really helpful. And then maybe, Rivka, we have to have you and your husband back to talk about the marriage restoration project at some point.
Oh,
that would be
I
great.
guess it depends on how people's Pesachs go.
Right? Yeah. What the letters are afterwards. No. That thing. So hopefully Emma got the answers that she needed.
Right.
And we thank you, Rivka, for coming. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Jill Scharfman. And thank you, and hope everybody has just a wonderful and easy and kosher Pesach. And that is it for this episode of Let My People Eat. Please visit our website at letmypeopleeat.com and leave us a comment. Get in touch at our email at podcast@letmypeopleeat.com or call us at 317-659-0004. Post on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook with the hashtag #LetMyPeopleEatPodcast. If you like this show, please make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Tell your friends and family, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts.
And please remember that although we are certified professionals, this is not a medical advice podcast. No content, posts, or comments should be interpreted as professional guidance. Always speak to your own health practitioner about making the right life changes for you.
Until next time, I am Jill Scharfman.
And I am Andrea Moskowitz.
Thanks for joining us.
And go in good health.